welcome to this edition of the Hasselblad Bladcast. I'm Mark Duhame, and I'm joined by my partner in crime,
Eric Peterson.
Eric, thanks for hanging with me again today.
Thanks a lot, Mark. Glad to be here.
Hey, before we get going, I know, Eric, you've got a special guest.
Yes.
But before we introduce him, let's just let people out there know that this Bladcast can be found on our Hasselblad USA blog, HassyUSA.com. So we really encourage photographers to get to that blog. Let us know what you guys are up to out there. Upload your own images. Share with your peers. We'd love to get feedback from you guys. Also, another way to do that is through our other social media vehicles, Twitter and Facebook. You can find us there also at HassyUSA. So, again, we encourage communication. Let us hear from you. And a lot of the stuff we hear about, we'll talk about on future podcasts. So I think that'd be pretty cool to get some input from the community. So, Eric, without further ado, let's introduce our guest here.
Yes, Mark, we have a very special guest in the studio with us today. We have Mr. Anders Espersen. He's from the headquarters of Hasselblad in Copenhagen, Denmark. Anders is part of the product management group there, and he's going to talk about product management and how product management works with competitive products as it pertains to Hasselblad.
Hi, thanks for having me here. It's true. One of the things that we obviously look at in product management is not only our own products, but we have to look at the competition. We have to see how the competition is performing in order for us to improve on every aspect. We want to be number one, obviously, so therefore comparisons are necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And so what I've been digging into lately here is looking at the H4D 40 compared to the Phase 1 P40 Plus, and also the H4D 60 compared to the P65 Plus. And that makes perfect sense in the time being, as we're now shipping the H4D 60 on a larger scale.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
So two things really stand out when we do this direct comparison. There's a lot of other things, besides the obvious, the camera handling. You look at the camera, the way it handles, the way it integrates with the back, what are the quality of the lenses and so forth, the software. So many aspects to look at. But two things I want to talk about right now is where the Hasselblad really stands out in our view. One thing is color rendition, the way that we generate the colors in the camera systems, and it's the same picture we see in both the H4D 40 and the H4D 60 compared to the Phase 1 cameras, equivalent cameras. The Hasselblad system does not make use of various input profiles. Mm-hmm. We don't have to select a tungsten profile or a daylight profile. You take the picture, you either neutralize it or you select one of the preset white balance settings. And by doing that, we render, I'd say, the most natural colors in any medium format camera on the market today. In particular with the Phase 1, we can see that we're superior in red and skin tones, put a lot of effort into creating the right skin tones, green and blue as well, and I have some sample images, obviously, that I took, and also when we look at when the color spectrum, when the color temperature falls and becomes extremely warm, that is where we really excel.
Okay.
And I have this tungsten capture here that I can show you, and you can see that the oranges in this picture here on the face camera is washed out. It doesn't maintain the orange color anymore. And so there, generally in all the aspects of photography and given light temperatures, we excel in any aspects, and it's really interesting.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, this is a single profile solution by Hasselblad that allows you to achieve this color consistency.
That's absolutely correct.
Moving from one type of image to another.
Yeah.
But in regards to the competitive product here with the Phase product, they're using multiple profiles for different situations, or?
That is correct.
Okay.
You have not only do you have to select the correct white balance in Capture One, but to obtain somewhat correct colors, you also have to select the right input profile.
Okay.
And that can be kind of confusing, I think, whereas with focus, for instance, you don't have to do anything other than neutralize or set your white balance for the image. The rest is taken care of, both in terms of software and also in the hardware coding of how we do the color rendering.
Okay.
So that's one very important aspect or difference between the two. Another thing that I'd like to point out to you is ISO, high ISO. We've been concerned that, from the market, everybody's been talking about how great the phase is in many aspects and how they have really good ISO handling. So I set out to really test this and be as unbiased as possible as I could. And I have to say, for instance, the H4D is in a category of its own when it comes to medium format cameras, because it does 1600 ISO and it does it really, really well. The base ISO on the P40 is different.
Okay.
So you have to test on different levels. But the 60, the H4D 60 and the P65 Plus uses the same delta sensor. So, the level of comparison should be equal. But still, when you look at 200 ISO, 400 ISO, and the maximum setting 800 ISO, there is actually much more noise in the phase file. There's less color rendition, there's less detail, colors turn into a gray tone in the shadows, and we maintain a higher level of detail and significantly less noise. And you see it particularly in the 800 ISO image, which kind of surprised me.
Well, you mentioned that each of the camera systems use the same DALSA sensor. How do we achieve that superiority in regards to image quality? Where does that come from? If the sensors are the same, what happens different in regards to it?
Good engineering,
okay.
I would have to say. I mean, we have, of course, different hardware. The two companies use different methods, and I think the use of profiles, for instance, from the face camera, is one of the reasons there are these issues at some times. We're able to maintain a consistent color rendition throughout the light spectrum. But you see, particularly on the 800 ISO shot from the 260 megapixel cameras, that we have less noise in the file and we maintain better detail. It's obviously less significant in the lower ISO. I'd say if you talk about the 200 ISO range, the differences are not as visual apparent as in the high ISO. So those are two issues where I think we really stand out compared to the face camera.
Great. So with color and ISO, we exceed our competition in regards to quality.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's great. And Anders, I think beyond this, you're going to be at Photokina. So anyone out there is going to be at Photokina, stop by the Hasselblad booth and ask for Anders. He'll be there, and but he could show you, and Hasselblad personnel will be able to show you the H4060 and the H4040 and all the solutions from Hasselblad, and show you the quality that we're talking about here.
And, hey, Anders, I'd like to thank you for stopping by today to the Bladcast, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
You're welcome. It was nice to be here.
Thanks, Anders. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And just one more note as far as Hasselblad events coming up. Those of you that love to travel and love photography, we've got 2 workshops coming up. One in October, it's going to be a trip to the Eastern Sierra Mountains in the fall. It's an Oliver Klink workshop. I'd encourage you guys to go to our website. There's an events section, and you can get the details, and you can register with Oliver for that trip. And then in January, there's a underwater workshop, actually hosted by Peter Lorber. It's going to be in the Grand Caymans. So if anyone's interested in taking that trip, it's like a week, I think a 5-day dive trip.
Yes.
And Peter also has a underwater housing solution, which is really cool. So it'll be diving and shooting underwater with the H4D system. So if anyone is interested in those trips, they're up on our website, and feel free to go up there, check it out, and please register. I think it'll be fun, both those trips.
Yes.
I think I want to go to Grand Caymans in January, though, personally.
Well, I'll be participating in the Eastern Sierra workshop, but I don't do water.
All right. So you do the Eastern Sierras, I'll do Grand Cayman. I think that sounds like a deal. So, all right, thanks for joining us. And again, everyone, keep in touch with us on our community blog, and we look forward to talking to you in a future edition of the Hasselblad Bladcast.